6:30. Is that what everybody else has?
Yep.
All right, awesome. So this is the Park Commission meeting of June 30th, 2021. Due to the changes in the open meeting law, our commission is being allowed to hold our meeting tonight virtually. The link to this meeting can be found on the agenda page or on our agenda, which is posted on the town website under government, then minutes and agendas, or linked through the town calendar. And please be advised that this meeting is being recorded. I'm going to do a quick attendance. Dave?
Yep, I'm here.
Susanna?
I'm here.
Anna?
Aye.
Chris?
Here.
And also with us tonight, we have Rob Oliva and I think Town Manager Heather Lemieux. So this meeting is going to start with board comment followed by public comment. And I'm going to ask that the members of the public wishing to make a comment try to keep their comments to around 3 minutes or less. And we're going to start with about a 30-minute slot for public comment if we need it. Hold on, let me admit some more people. And before I break into that, before I hand it over to the DPW director to make his comment, I do just want to make a quick comment myself. The 5 members of the Park Commission are volunteers that have been elected to this commission and to the positions that we hold. We're a diverse background and we have a varied experiences, but we do share one common goal, which is to better the things in this town for our residents. We share the frustration, disappointment, and disgust that many of our residents have recently expressed, and we will work to ensure that these kind of things do not happen again. Every member of our commission is reachable individually or collectively. If you need our individual email addresses, let me know and I can get those to you, but our collective email address is parks@lunenburgonline.com. And I encourage you to work with us as we try to improve our parks and make things better for our residents. So I'm going to hand it over right now to our DPW director.
Hi, good evening. So I have a couple of things I wanted to talk about. First of all, on a positive note, I had been out to Marshall Park over the last few weeks, and while I was out there one day, I noticed the batting cage, there had been damage. The netting had been pulled down, and some of the metal fence, the supports that were damaged. I contacted the same fence company who did some of the previous repairs at the park. They got right out there. They repaired the support, and while they were out there, I guess they came back, the netting had been put back up. So someone anonymously, I don't know who at this point, helped out and actually saved the town a little bit of money. So whoever that was, I appreciate it, and it was a nice thing to do. The second thing I want to talk about is the parks program and the summer recreation program and the feedback we've been receiving as the programs have gotten underway. I'll acknowledge there's been many issues. There's been, from what I've seen on social media, because I do read it, there's been a lot of frustration with the program. There have been a lot of concerns raised. There have been a lot of questions raised. So we're going to try and answer all of those. We're trying to get to the bottom of what's happened, where we've gone wrong, where some of the shortcomings are. So we're in the middle of doing that. We're talking to staff and trying to answer questions we've received, both internally. I've seen on social media and some emails that we've received. So I want to let the commission know we're looking into it. We want a successful program. I think we're far short of that with what's been happening. So we want to make it better. We know the Parks Director is just trying to put on a successful program for the town and has high aspirations for the program. We've come up quite a bit short. So we're working on it. We're making improvements. I know there's been a lot of frustration with the program and the number of offerings that were made and were listed online. These programs were all set up so there was a minimum number of registrants required for the individual programs to move ahead. So I know there's a lot of frustration from residents on, we've signed up for this class, we haven't heard anything, and then the class is canceled. I can say that in the majority of cases, the classes that have been canceled have been due to a lack of interest and not meeting the minimum number of registrations. We have to keep in mind that our Parks Department is basically one person. She's part-time, and she's trying to put on a program that, it's more than we've ever had, because we've never had anything. But we rely on contractors and vendors who put on these programs, and they require us to have these minimums, and they require certain registration periods. While I know it was known in the beginning when registrations were happening that, classes could be canceled due to lack of participation, I understand it's frustrating nonetheless. And I know as a parent, if my child was looking forward to a program, or I had signed up thinking, I'd at least be relieved from babysitting duties for a period and being able to work, it would be frustrating knowing that got canceled. So I'm understanding of the comments that we're receiving, and we're going to do our best to answer them and come to a better program.
Great, thank you. Do we have any other board comments?
Yes, I do. I know we have a pretty long agenda today. It seems to be, about 13 items. I was going to make a motion asking the fellow board members that if the meeting were to exceed 2.5 hours, that we adjourn at 2.5 hours and maybe reconvene in a couple weeks. I think we're likely going to have more items on the agenda, and maybe there'll be also a good time to get another update with what's happening with the summer programs. I just know that after 2.5 hours, we probably won't be as productive, but I don't want us to wait another month before next meeting. So do I have a second for that?
I'd second that.
Okay, great. Is there any discussion on that before?
Yeah, if we're going to do that, I'd like to put a time specific on the re-adjournment or the next meeting.
Sure, we can do that.
Yep. Okay.
Look at your calendars real quick so we can get on to public comment. Next week, I don't think would be the best week, just because it's the 4th of July week. I mean, I could, if everybody's available, we could certainly do it. I would suggest, if Wednesdays work for everybody, the following week.
14.
14th should work for me,
Okay.
especially if we're still remote, which I believe we're planning to.
Yes, yeah. I think we get more public participation that way.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion on the table to adjourn this meeting this evening once it hits the 2.5 hour mark, and reconvening or having a new meeting on the 14th of July at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I had a motion and a second, so this requires a roll call. Anna?
I
Chris?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Susanna?
Aye.
And an aye for myself. Okay, so that's going to be the plan. We started at 6:30, so it'll be 9 o'clock. We may be done. You never know. We might surprise ourselves. Any other board comment before we open it up to the public? All right, do we have any public comments? Go ahead, Lynn. I think you can unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to identify myself, Lynn Major, a Lunenburg Town Beach part-time employee. And I just want to say we've had an outpouring of first, I want to thank the board for all their work and the time that they put in to help the members of the town enjoy their Parks Department year round. But I want to say we've had an outpouring of support for our swim lessons at the town beach. And so that brings my question to the board. There's been a limit on the number of students for the swim lessons. And in the past, we've had up to 12 students in a class. And we could do that easily again this year with our WSI and helper with the class. And we do have an extensive amount of beachfront so that we could space people out. And I know at the school, as a school employee, we were having the students were outside unmasked and playing together at the end of the year. So I know that in the past, like last year we suffered because of the pandemic, and so that people are desperate to have these lessons. And with what's been on the news lately, Massachusetts it's been abominable with the 47 drownings in, just in this season in Massachusetts alone. So it's frightening. And, we pride ourselves on on providing that what's needed for them. So I'm hoping that the board will allow us. We have a lot of parents who they're on the waiting list and they haven't heard if they can get in or not. So I'm hoping the board will allow us to open the lessons to 12 students at each session, each
Sure.
particular class, and that we can let parents know that they can then come in to the classes because they're trying to plan their vacations. And
Okay. So the park commission actually doesn't, we don't have a set policy on that. The numbers were set up through the rec director and, then put online. So I don't think it needs to be a vote through us. I think as long as the beach coordinator, Jen Nass, is comfortable increasing it, it would need to be a conversation. I don't know if it would need to go through the rec director or through Rob Oliver.
Well, parents have been trying to reach out to find out if they can get in or not, and so they haven't had a response. And I know, she's on maternity leave and
Yep,
also
yep,
just
okay.
don't know what to do.
Right. So let's do this. Let's either Rob and I can have a discussion in the morning, or I can go down to the town beach and talk to Jen and figure out what needs to get done in order to get some of these families off the wait list so that they can get into the swim lessons this year. So I'll work with Rob just because we're short staffed because we have somebody out on leave. So let's see what we can work together to accomplish to try to get more of these kids into the program. Unless anybody disagrees with that, it's not something that we've motioned and made the decisions on in the past. We've just set the prices, Dave.
Yeah, Karen, just a quick question. I seem to remember the vice chair posting somewhere that there was some discussion about adding more sessions. Has that already been done and we still have an extensive wait list?
Yes, they're offering on Saturdays as well, but there's still, because I think the size was limited at the beginning, with the pandemic, we weren't sure. So I think that they put a limit of like 5 students or something like that, or 5 or 6. And so I think we can easily accommodate our usual 12 with the large expanse on the beach and so forth. And with what we went through with school, the kids were all out at recess together. So that's what I was thinking. It's probably a change, with the pandemic rulings outside now.
Okay, yeah, and I'm assuming that people that have reached out are probably trying to get a hold of the rec director, who just she really has had such limited hours when she does jump on that they're not getting the response. So we will, Rob, is that all right with you? We'll just have this conversation and try to see what we can do to get some more of those slots opened up.
Yes, yep, we'll talk about it.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public? We may have just made things very easy. Oh, yep, go ahead.
Sorry.
That's okay. Go right ahead.
I sent an email that went out. Do I need to say it again, or is that?
You don't,
Okay.
well, for the first thing I need you to do is tell us who you are and where you're from.
I'm Laura Brzozowski. I live at 21 Francis Ave in Lunenburg.
Great. It's up to you if you want to read that into the record, you're welcome to, or if you want to discuss it, that's fine too.
I had my 5 questions.
Sure.
That was, why did we hire a temporary replacement for the recreation director? Because maternity leave wasn't unplanned. We knew this was coming. And this is the busy season. And why did we schedule such a busy offering of programs while Kayla was on maternity leave? And why were the locations for the camps not procured before opening registration for the camp or any time sooner? That's one of the big questions, is why weren't the locations procured before? And the 4th question is, what happened with the locations of the camp? Who was the one responsible for finding locations with running water and access to bathrooms? What was the situation that led to Marshall Park being the only viable option for the sports camp? Was there a breakdown in communication between the Parks Department and the school system? Did the school system not allow it, or was it a requesting issue? Like, I just want to know what happened there so we can keep it from happening again. And the 5th question, I don't remember that. 5th question is, who was responsible for getting a permit and or a license from the Board of Health? And are the camps permitted right now legally through the Board of Health? So those are my 5 questions. And I also just wanted to say that it's a huge inconvenience to have the camps canceled at such last minute. A lot of parents depend on it for childcare so they can go to work, and there are a lot of people scrambling now to make up for that time. Registration for other camps is closed, or a lot of camps are full or way more expensive. So this is a pretty big inconvenience to families. That's it.
Thank you. I don't know if anybody wants to try to tackle those answers now, or if they have the answer. If they don't, that's fine. We can certainly research those answers and get back to her.
Well, Rob might have some updates on that. I think a lot of these questions were more, you know, day-to-day operations versus policies. And he was, I don't know if, Rob, do you have any answers you can give us?
I do. Most of this, let me start with the first question, why we didn't hire a temporary replacement. At the time when the Summer Parks program was planned and conceived, our Parks director was under the belief that she'd be able to manage the program while on leave, or basically working after she had her baby. I can't get into personnel issues, but that arrangement has changed, and it's created obviously some stress on the program, and that's what you're seeing now. So at this time, we're looking into that, and we may look into and try and hire an interim director. So it's not off the table, but in the beginning, when heading into the summer, we didn't think it was necessary. So that's changed. The next question, as far as why such a robust schedule, that ties into the first answer. Our director thought that basically she could pull this off. And as you can see right now, and because some things have changed, it hasn't materialized that way. And we know it's created a lot of stress for people. As I mentioned earlier, some of the timing of the camps and the locations, as I mentioned earlier, we rely on contractors to run these programs. They're vendors. This is what they do. Unfortunately, the timing of things, and as far as the cancellations, people committing, and then the programs being canceled, and the location. In most cases, the vendors wanted to keep the registration open until the Wednesday before. I know Kayla wasn't doing that. In most cases, I think the most she was doing was a week before. And then the location, she didn't know if she needed a location because she didn't know if there was a class. It doesn't excuse the fact that these weren't lined up in advance, which I think obviously should have been the case, regardless of whether or not there was a camp. So again, we're trying to figure out everything that went wrong, and obviously we do it differently in the future. And to your point that, and I agree, and when I saw the full scope of what was going on with the program, and you can see 1 or 2 people are registered for a course that needs 10 registrants, a few days or a week before the event, obviously the contractor is not going to do it because there's not enough interest. I don't believe that's probably necessarily the best model to move forward with in the future, because I can understand, I'm a parent, I know what would have happened in my household had this happened. So I really can understand the frustration that people are feeling with the program, and I certainly don't want future programs to function in this way. So that's a little bit about the timing and the locations. My opinion is the locations really should have been locked down. I know parents were feeling left in the dark because they didn't know where camps were going to be held, a week or 2 weeks in advance. So I know people want to be in communication with the program and know what's going on, and know if there are other needs that they need to address, the location. So again, it's unfortunate it happened like this, but We're trying to fix it now. We're looking, at the programs that are currently taking place and programs that will still take place, trying to make sure health and safety are addressed, that the locations are suitable, that the correct permits are in place. So that's things we're working on for the programs we know that are going to move forward.
Do we know, Laura, I'll tackle the question on the school piece in a second, but let me put your fifth question up first. The Board of Health in the proper permitting, we do have some camps that looks like they're going to be able to move forward. Is somebody on top of making sure that those correct permits are obtained before that program moves forward?
Yes, I'm going to be working with the vendors to make sure the permits are applied for and granted. They're very familiar with the process. They weren't, some of the misunderstanding as far as the permits, the way I understand it, and I'm certainly not an expert on the camp regulations that the state has or the laws on licensing camps. But basically, when a town recreation department runs a program, they're exempt from these license requirements under certain conditions. And there was a misunderstanding between the director and what she understood to be, and from my more recent conversations with the Board of Health, what the expectation is. So I'm in contact with the Board of Health, with the agent for Lunenburg, and we're working through that.
Thank
So,
you.
Yep. So for future camps, if a license is required, we're certainly going to do the correct paperwork or have the vendor submit the correct paperwork for the license.
Thank you. All right, so as for the other piece, and Laura, I'm assuming you're referring to some of the best soccer situation that's going on right now and that cancellation. So I'm still trying to sort out many details on that one. It had been my understanding that there had been an agreement, an in-kind agreement between the recreation department and the schools for mutual use of the field. So they could use Marshall Park for their varsity and JV softball and baseball program. And in return, we could use their outdoor fields. And the request went in about 2 weeks ago, I believe, for use of that, the high school fields. And the response that she got was that because it was Best Soccer running it and they're a for-profit organization, they were going to have to pay $50 per hour to rent that field. So Best Soccer can't absorb that. Although their programs aren't, they're not super expensive, they're also not super cheap, but they have overhead as well, and they have to pay their counselors, and it's just something they couldn't absorb. They couldn't pay that fee. So they had to cancel for that reason. I have to finish fleshing out the details of it because it doesn't make a ton of sense to me for a park sponsored or recreation sponsored program to be hit with that when that was not even my understanding of the way it was supposed to work. So I need to flesh out some of the details of that and have some conversations with the school department.
Karen, can I ask a question about that agreement? Is
Sure.
that something that is usually worked between the commission and the school department, or is it worked through, who are the parties involved in that
So
conversation agreement?
it's been a couple of years since this has been established, and this is the best of my memory. So my memory is it was a sit-down conversation that the recreation director had with the school department, and it would have been pre-COVID. And it never came in front of us, but the information, like the arrangement came in front of us, and none of, at the time, whoever the commissioners were, didn't have an issue with it, so it went forward. But it's not something that we worked the details out on, because it was the recreation program wanting to use their field, so it made more sense at the time that she was trying to flesh out or work out the details so that she would have some outdoor rectangular space to use. Yeah.
I think it was partially a trade-off in that up to that point, there were some issues with trying to collect fees on a yearly basis previous to that. So that helped the Parks Commission, and it took care of some of the issues that had been a problem up to that point. Win-win for both sides if it worked out properly.
So I don't have all the answers. I don't have, that's all that I have. And I've been open in sharing that information because I think it's important. I think that we as a community, we are one town. And I think everybody has it in their best interest in mind when in trying to make sure we have the services that we need and want in this town. But I think there's a disconnect when it comes to groups working together. And I think that needs to be repaired, and I think it needs to be fixed. And we have a high demand for a soccer camp in town. It is disappointing to me that this is the way that it went down. So I need to flesh out some more of the details because I don't have them all. And I don't want to be throwing something out there that's not accurate. I need to go back, and we can go back as a commission. I can go back individually. It doesn't matter how we do it. We need to go back and open these discussions with the school department again, and see what we can get out of the conversation to have a better understanding of why this happens.
And that was a full program, right? I mean, that was, if I'm understanding it, the best soccer program was pretty full.
So
We weren't struggling on registration numbers.
So I may have misspoke yesterday. I thought that those numbers were low too. I believe it was there was 3 programs being offered. It was the Real Little Kids. That was like a 45-minute to hour-long program in the morning. Then there was a half day and a full day. And when I was with Rob today and he looked at the numbers, it looked like the half day and the full day had enough numbers to move forward.
So has that been permanently canceled? Or
I'm assuming it's permanently canceled because Best Soccer would have, they made the decision to say we can't, that's not a fee that we can absorb. That would have been from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at $300 a day minimum, because I don't know if they need a little bit of time on either side. $1,500 for the week, they couldn't absorb that.
I feel like, I feel like as a commission, we should send some kind of message as a body to the school, not just the school department, but the school committee. Because, historically, when I first moved to Lunenburg, the school department, the school district used to do a lot of some of these programs. They used to run the sports camp, the tennis camp, and the school did a lot. And I always felt like the school was doing a lot. And, we barely had a parks department. Now we have a parks and recreation director, which we are trying to do things. And there is a little bit of a transition, and it seems that somewhat of a growing pain, very growing pain, but we can't lose focus that we are still one community. So, that's very upsetting if these 2 programs that I know are very sought after by many communities simply got canceled because, I don't know. I want to go down to the school committee meeting. But I think that's very serious. They would not, it's as serious as if we decide to rent Marshall Park for another event other than this baseball and the softball, which they have, we pretty much give them right of first use.
We do, and we have for years. And
right.
The only 100% Lunenburg program that uses the 90-foot diamond is the Lunenburg High School program. So,
which I think is wonderful. I'm not looking, but I think this is very upsetting that we had a verbal agreement. We are, the Parks and Recreation Department is a 1-person half-time. We are not going to put employees. We're not going to put employees on the payroll to start running a Best Soccer plan. We have a soccer plan. We have the Town Beach. We have the swimming lessons, which we have managed for years. But for us to try to recreate that infrastructure that Best Soccer Camp has offered throughout the years, they've always been in town, at least since I'm around. And all of a sudden, this park, sponsored event gets labeled as private. It's very upsetting. And I don't know what is our recourse as a commission, but I want to, do something bigger than just Karen, you go down there by yourself. Susanna, you're going to say something?
Yeah, was this an athletic director decision or the school committee?
It came over from John Londa.
Just from him, that Best Soccer has been in town for years. They never were charged before.
In sort of in defense of what's going on right now, this is not the first time this has happened.
Okay,
I happened to be on Lunenburg Youth Soccer the first time it did happen, and they changed their rates, and they were trying to charge them $50 because even though it was sponsored through Lunenburg Youth Soccer, we're the ones who asked them to come in because they were private. This is the direction they went in back then. And I believe at that point too, they also said, we can't afford that. So it had been out of town for a couple of years, I believe. And I could be slightly off on some of the little details on that just because it's been so long, but yeah, and when I look at what other towns are doing, Littleton, for example, they have a program, they're on town fields, and their pricing was the same as our pricing. So it's clear at that point that they're like Littleton's not charging for their town fields either. So yeah,
So
I agree.
as a board, do we want to do something other than, we want to draft a paragraph that we're sent to school committee?
I think we need to flesh out the details a little bit more because we really don't have enough information to know what the agreement was and who it was between. There's a school committee, there's a superintendent, there's a protocol that they're supposed to follow, and they don't always follow it. You get an okay from one person, and they really don't have the jurisdiction to give you that okay. One other comment, if I may, Anna, not contradicting you with your comment about the school programs in the past and, the years ago. Many of those programs, and I can think of basketball camp, tennis camp, and a couple of others, they were not run by the school. They were run by dedicated members of the town of Lunenburg. And, they did their due diligence to make sure I's were crossed, I's were dotted, T's were crossed. But they also were forced out over time by building fees that they could not absorb. So I just wanted to make that comment that, there's a big picture here that really needs to be looked at and resolved.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Laura, you good with all that so far? And we'll keep digging for more answers. She might have stepped away.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I did have, so are the camps right now that are running right now are okay with the Board of Health to be running?
So the camps that let's put it this way, and Rob, you can correct me if I'm wrong. The Board of Health, the program that's running right now, the Board of Health is aware of, and we're satisfied with the change of location over to TC Passios with the use of the bathroom facilities and hand washing. But we need to pursue the permitting on them. So it's my understanding that the current one that's running is not 100% permitted at this point, but it has the Board of Health has not shut it down at this point. So it's got to be fixed though. I mean, we can't, nobody's trying to circumvent it. This camp had just already started, and then it's taken a few days to start, it's taken a few days to get more of the details out and to speak with them. So
was it the vendor who was supposed to be getting the permitting, or was it a miscommunication or a breakdown in communication between us and the vendor?
Yeah, so I don't know if it was not, and Rob, please chime in if I'm wrong. I believe.
Well, I can, Karen, I can speak to this if you like.
Great. Yeah, please.
Essentially, it began with what seemingly is a misunderstanding by the Parks Director. Her understanding of the regulations are maybe different than what the Board of Health interpret. So it's So it's the responsibility of the town ultimately to make sure the permits are in place. I've tried to be in contact with the current vendor, Viking, who's running the camps that are in operation right now. I actually have to catch up with the owner of the company tomorrow to talk about the issue. And as far as the permit goes, or the need for a permit, I haven't heard definitively yet from the Board of Health one way or the other. They could decide tomorrow to shut it down for the lack of a permit, but I just don't know that. It hasn't come to that yet, and I hope it doesn't. But we'll do everything to make sure, or anything I can do to make sure that doesn't happen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say, I appreciate you guys being so on top of this. And I mean, I know that the Parks Commission really only sets policy. There isn't much that can be done, but I really do appreciate how on top of everything you guys all are.
Thank you.
And
Yeah, we're
then
trying
as
to
a
have
side,
good program, so.
as a side note, I also have had issues with the school and leasing space. I'm a Girl Scout leader, and both my troops can't meet there because the Girl Scouts do not allow us to pay for meeting space. We have to meet somewhere that's free. And the school, I mean, they charge us, and there's nothing I've been able to do to get around that because they do not consider my Girl Scout troop to be a Lunenburg youth group, because Girl Scouts is a nationwide program.
Gotcha. Yeah, we've had that, you and I have talked about that before.
Yeah.
So, great. Do we have any other public comment before we move on to our actual agenda items, or even board comment at this point?
If I may, Karen, I'd just like to sum up the conversations we've had here, and hope some more people chime in also. Rob is very much aware of this, but I think the concentration needs to be on what is planned, obviously what's operating now and what's planned over the next 6 to 8 weeks. What's in place, what's it look like, and as early as possible, let the general public know what's going to happen to those programs. Because another round of wait until the last week before an event and cancel it, it's just going to continue to cause issues through the entire summer. I mean, you know, if it boils down to there's just too much to try to get this all straightened out, which I do not believe that's the case, then my comment would be shut down the programs. But I think it can be worked out. I was a member of the Board of Health for 9 years, and I know they will bend over backwards to, number one, make sure that the public is safe, and number two, not shut a program down if it can find a way to work around it. Thank you.
One last comment, and is as a suggestion, Rob, I know we had to cancel some programs because there weren't enough enrollment, but maybe if there is a way, and there's probably a way to just pull the parents that would have those programs canceled, and maybe offer them a list of the programs that would be otherwise running on that same time, because I think some of those programs might be being canceled because there was too much offering for the general number of, the population that we have. So I think that might be an option, instead of just people getting emails that a program was canceled, is to maybe get an email and say, hey, we don't have enough enrollment for this program, but it looks like these other might be running, which would be about the same time. Would be interested in signing up for those, and we can transfer the registration to that, or do something as a way of customer service, just so that people are not just getting a cancellation note. That would be a suggestion. I don't know.
If I might respond to that just real quick. So all the programs that were canceled, everybody's been notified, refunds have been issued. The ones that are currently gonna, slated to move forward, that because they have enough registrants, I believe the website is still available to register for those, from what I was told today. So if people want to check out what's left, although the offering is limited, I do know there's a Ninja Warrior course that seems pretty popular. There's 2 sessions of it, but people still can go to the Lunenburg MyRec website and see what's available.
Okay.
And you're going to work to secure an official location for those?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right.
I was just just to iterate what you were saying, Karen, with regards to our emails and so forth. I just want to encourage, those here tonight and anyone else that listens to this later, to utilize that form of communication with this commission. Really, that's going to be the best way to reach us. There were a lot of public comments and various streams on Facebook and so forth. But just to emphasize what you were saying at the start of the meeting, that email communication is really the best way to get a hold of us, address things officially, and make sure the proper channels are all, involved with, and notified of what's going on, as opposed to trying to catch up on, social media channels and so forth.
Agreed. Thank you. All right, so that was the weirdest public board comment session we've ever had. So let's move on. We don't have any minutes available, I assume, correct? Because I haven't seen anything in our inbox. While we're on that topic, I did do a mass download to town clerk last week with all of 2020 and then what we have for 2021 so far. I believe we're missing a 2020 set of minutes, which just happened to be a meeting that was just Dave and I at. So I'll try to tackle those. I don't see them as being approved. And I think we still have a couple from this like last month and maybe the month before that we need to finish. But everything should be up. So if you're looking for old minutes, they should be there. Do you have any other updates, Rob?
I do not at this time.
Okay, great. All right, so our next agenda item is the Marshall Park Master Plan that was approved through the capital plan at annual town meeting. Rob, can you give an overview of what the next steps are, what we as a commission need to do, and things like that?
Yeah, certainly. I think that obviously you need to do a search for a consultant who would be knowledgeable and experienced in this type of thing, who has experience in designing and working with open spaces and park spaces for towns and cities. I'm imagining that this consultant is a landscape architect or someone of that nature. I can certainly provide a couple of recommendations, but I would imagine you might, as a commission, want to be entertaining presentations by maybe a couple different consultants and get their thoughts before you actively search for one. So I think that's probably the most important part of this is the commission finding someone who can guide you through the process of developing the master plan and you're comfortable with, and you would your expectations would be for a great result. Maybe not the easiest task to do because this is it's an unusual. There aren't a lot of master plans like this being conducted, I wouldn't imagine, but there are certainly qualified consultants who have knowledge and experience in doing them.
Is this something that has to go out to bid?
I would think for the price range that you'd be looking at to hire this consultant, I would think you have to, yeah.
So do we need to create a?
Well, I take that back. Not necessarily. The consultants, that's different than hiring, say, a contractor to build it or build something. So it may not be, but it's certainly you want to have a vetting process to pick this individual or company.
Because if it had to go out to bid, we would create the scope of the project the consulting that we need to have done. And then they answer that. And then we'd have to go with the lowest one, right?
Yeah, and I think the procurement process is, and I can confirm this, but I think the procurement process is different for consultants rather than goods and materials and other contracted services. So I can certainly look into that for you. I think you still may want to bring one or two in to speak to them and develop a scope of what you think the master plan is and what it's trying to accomplish, so that they have a bigger picture of what you're looking for. So I think having a document that you can provide for them to start that conversation is certainly would be important.
Karen, could we ask Heather, because I believe she is aware of the do's and don'ts with engineering and consulting, because this has been discussed over the years at different times when this type of a project has been in its early stages, because there are, as Rob suggests, there are certain things such as engineering and consulting. I won't say that's the correct terminology, but things in that realm do not necessarily have to go out to bid. And Heather would have the basic information on that and whether or not there's a dollar amount limit.
I was just reminded that it would fall under Chapter 30B.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
I'm not a 30B expert. It's basically the procurement laws.
Okay. So
So
it's gonna have to go out to bid. So we're gonna need to create a scope for the project so that in what we're looking for, so that we can put that out to bid and then they would answer, and then we have to take the lowest bid that comes in.
I'll get you clarification on that.
Okay. Okay. That works. Does anybody else have any questions on that? Because obviously we got to do a little bit of more work before we can move to the next step of securing somebody to start working with us. You guys are making it easy. All right, so the next agenda item is lifeguards. So if you remember a couple of meetings ago, we made a recommendation to for, I don't know, like a whole bunch of lifeguards. 2 of those lifeguards didn't end up taking the positions. So we're looking to bring in 2 more lifeguards to fill those spots to round out our numbers at the town beach. This past week, 2 young men were interviewed, Ian Laundrie and Mason Bowser. Both have all the necessary requirements, the CPR, first aid, Red Cross certified lifeguarding certificates. So they're of age, so they're great young men. So I'm looking this evening to be able to make a motion to put forward recommending these 2 young men for hire at the town beach.
So moved.
Second,
Thank you. Susanna, do you have questions?
Nope. I was
Does
gonna-
anybody, before we go on to any sort of vote, does anybody have any questions on this piece right now? All right, so I have a motion and apparently 2 seconds. We'll sort that out when we do the minutes, but we do have, we have what we need for that. So this would be to recommend hiring Ian Laundrie and Mason Bowser for the town beach for this current 2021 season. Then this needs to be done via roll call vote. So Dave Passios,
aye.
Susanna,
Aye.
Anna,
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
And an aye from myself. So I will get that email out momentarily because it needs to be added to the Board of Selectmen agenda for next week. That's done. What are we looking at for time? Anna, I think I'm just gonna keep going down the list the
Yeah.
way it is. All right, the next one is, this is the dog policy discussion and potential vote. We have talked in previous meetings about changing what our dog policy is. We're looking at all of our parks, correct? Not just Marshall.
Correct.
Currently, it's supposed to be no dogs allowed anywhere on Parks property, and we are looking to change that. I did, way back when, send some emails to town manager, who then ran them by the town attorney, and somebody, I think it was somebody through maybe our insurance company, and neither one of them saw any issues with changing it as long as these dogs would be on leash. So that was one of our concerns last time, was that, could we do it? Could we, since we, could we require on leash, since we don't necessarily have a leash law, we have a restraint law in town?
Yeah, I was tasked with trying to pull together a draft, and recent events have set that aside up to now. Once I get into July, I'm going to have a lot of time. And I expect I could come up with the draft for the next meeting.
Okay.
And hopefully have it reviewed before the next meeting, but that may be a little more than will happen, but I'll have a basic draft at least. I did start to look at a couple of area towns. The only thing that stood out to me so far, because I was looking in the wrong direction, was the town of Littleton has a leash law. They actually put a restraint ordinance in place temporarily by the Board of Selectmen, and then a number of months later at a special town meeting actually voted a bylaw. So they have a leash law. Their dogs are to be restrained anywhere in the town of Littleton on Littleton property and its streets. One thing I did note in a couple of places that I looked, and we might consider this for the Saliba property, but it will need a lot more discussion and discussion about what we perceive how that property is being used. But there are a few towns that allow unleashed dogs on certain conservation lands, and the way they allow it is that the trail is marked a certain distance in from the trailhead, and from there in, they're allowed to be off leash. I'm not sure that we want to do that, but I just bring it up as that is available to some people in certain area towns. And then obviously a lot of them have dog parks where they do not have to be leashed within the enclosed area. So
Okay.
that's what I've got so far.
So you want to throw something together for the next meeting is what I'm taking from this?
Yeah, it'll be the end of July and I'll have most of the month to work on it. So
Okay. I'm fine. Does anybody else, is that all right with everybody else? Okay. And I'm around if you need help working on that, Dave. Just-
yep, thanks.
All right, so that's one more checked off. So the next one I have, and just for everybody that's tuned in, this agenda was actually created before the hoopla of Monday went down. So this stuff that was on our agenda already. So it's fall and future programming and website feedback. So I can tell you that since this agenda has been created, I think that Rob's got a better understanding of what's going on and what some of the needs are, as does the rec director.
There's an item above that on the agenda though, Ken.
Oh, there is?
Yeah,
Oh,
priority of park projects,
I
including Marshall Park
crossed
Trail.
off, yeah, so let's go back up. Ignore everything I just.
Either that, Karen, or keep going and we can
And then
jump
go back to
that
it.
one.
That's
That's fine.
fine.
All right, let's do that.
I think that's better. You're already into it.
I am already into it. Remind me though, because you know me, I will keep going. So there's already discussions in the works, and the expectation has been set by Rob that the future programming needs to be scaled way back. It needs to meet the needs of the town so that we have the offerings that we do have can be filled and not canceled. Because right now we had smatterings of kids here and there, but then they had to get canceled because there weren't enough kids in each session. So by offering less, it's going to be more likely to be filled up. It will be more manageable. So I do think that's going to be an automatic. I do think we need to give some thought as a commission to what we can do to assist in helping our recreation director move forward with programming and what types of programming. Surveys have gone out, and the surveys that our rec director had gotten back, the questions that she had asked were, they wanted a whole variety of stuff. And then you put all of that out there and nobody was biting at it. And then that was leading to cancellations, which in some cases is fine. Nobody signed up, so nobody knows the difference, and it's fine. And then other times you get 1 or 2 kids signed up, they're looking forward to it, and then it gets canceled. So I think as a commission, we need to figure out how to assist in offering some guidance on what can be done. in putting out the best programming for our community.
I have a thought.
Yeah.
I think that some of that diversity can just be rolled into one camp, one or two or three camps. You know, there could be some cooking, some nature, some art, all in one camp, and some sports. You know, the soccer camp, a baseball camp. It doesn't have to be a cooking camp or a Lego camp, or you know, all these separate ones. Our town isn't big enough. We don't have enough kids to really support the dicing it up so much.
So one of the reasons I think so much programming got on there was because she was working with vendors that offered a lot of programming. And I don't necessarily disagree that they were offering a wide variety of choices because they can, and they are staffed for that. So I think it was a valiant effort to put that number of programmings on there, but I think we're now 2 seasons in, I think, on programming, and it's too big and it's not manageable. And the other part on the website feedback is Chris and I had noticed a couple of weeks ago that some of the programming that was listed that seemed to be community-wide activities never even made it onto the website, including the Earth Day cleanup never made it onto the website.
Yeah, there was a poster, but not a lot of sign up information. There's some other free events that look good that I think would be valuable to the community, and you know, the summer concert series and movie nights and ice cream socials and so forth. And I know she was waiting to hear back from, and Rob, you might have some insight. She was waiting to hear back from vendors on those free events. And it may be pretty important to maybe see if we can get some of those off the ground.
Honestly, Chris, I only recently learned about those, and I don't know where they stand.
Okay.
So that's something, I mean, I can certainly look into those.
Yeah, that was the reply, because I inquired about those mainly because they were, you know, I was kind of the triple F. It was family, fun, free, you know, weeknight events or whatnot. And if we can still maybe get those, even if it was 1 or 2, get those off the ground. And I mean, I think it's a nice outreach to the community from the Recs department. But she was waiting to hear back from the vendors because some COVID has evolved, those types of events and things have changed. And I think the vendors are trying to grasp how those can all occur as well, I think. So that was just a couple to take a look at if we can get the, you know, maybe 1 or 2, you know, something a couple of times this summer, an ice cream social or something like that might be a nice pre-event from the rec department.
Was there a movie in the parks listed in those free programs? I seem to remember
Yes,
one
Monday
discussed.
night movies in the park.
I mean, that one, if it could be pulled off, and
Sure.
I don't know, is that an outside vendor that has to run that?
It is a
or-
vendor. Yeah, that was the issue.
It
I
is.
reached out on all 3 of those events
Okay.
because the flyer said we were looking for bands for the concerts and sponsors for the concerts on Wednesdays, and then the movies on Monday. But with COVID changing, that the response was with COVID changing and evolving and so forth, she was waiting to hear back on kind of updates and how those could occur and so forth. So that was the last update that I had heard, and that was a few weeks ago. So
Well,
if there
I
is some
have a-
more insight she might be able to provide, or Rob, you can find out. Again, something like that I think would be, given the conversation we're having and the Facebook discussions and so forth, if the rec department can swing a couple of movie nights or ice cream socials or something, it might be a nice rebound.
Rob, is there, you know, based on, you know, building on what Karen was saying, you know, looking forward, you know, making a plan and how can we get involved? But are there tasks or specific things that you think would be helpful for us to get involved that will maybe facilitate the management and make it easier? Because, you know, you're the DPW director, and I don't know if there are a lot of towns that Parks and Recs land under the DPW director. I think historically in Lunenburg, parks have been the responsibility of the DPW director, mostly for maintenance of the fields and the parks. But do you have something in mind that, you know, we can help you as a commission? And I know Karen and Chris have taken on, you know, trying to step up and help as much as they can. But maybe there are tasks that you'd say, it'd be great if you guys could review X, Y, and Z. I don't know. I mean, now that you're becoming familiar with all this, what can we do to help facilitate?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the nuts and bolts of the programming, like Kayla, obviously. I know Karen and Chris have done a lot, and that's certainly appreciated. And I know Kayla appreciates the help. That's a conversation I could have with her, because now knowing what we know, I'm sure there's areas, knowing she only works 19 hours a week, and with everything that's gone on and transpired, I think even a full-time person would have been greatly served to pull all these programs off. But I can have that conversation with her. I can't give you specific tasks because I'm not
Right.
familiar enough with it. But I know it must have been, I think the coordination with the vendors obviously was probably a bulk of the work that had gone on. But I'm sure there's other smaller things that could be taken on or delegated if so wished. So I can look into that. I can certainly, hopefully, if Kayla's available, I know she's always willing to email with me, so I can have that conversation with her.
Right, because, especially since she's on maternity leave and we try to figure out, what to do in the meantime, maybe plan it that way we might end up with a better outcome than if we just start trying to help. And also, I mean, I know Karen and Chris have done a lot, and but there's not a lot of visibility on how other members of the board can actually help what you guys are doing. So maybe if we structure on what can we do to help, we can get more people helping.
And part of that's not, like, it's certainly not intentional by,
Oh, I know that.
it's more like, once we're 3 people, we're a quorum. So it
Right.
becomes a little bit more delicate, to try.
No,
to-
I fully know that. It's more about how can we get more people to help, especially during maternity leave or for future planning.
Yeah, I agree. So I think in light of the developments of this week and the information that we as a commission have been able to gather and the stuff that Rob's gotten on, I think this agenda item is sort of, I think I want to say it's just expired. I think that, yes, we need to look at fall and future programming, but I think we need to number one, finish fleshing out some of the details of things, such as why we're having issues trying to get space, especially at TC Passios, a response in what I would consider a timely manner. We need to figure that out. We need to figure out why what we thought was an agreement that our recreation director had with the schools didn't seem to be honored. I think we need to flush some of that out in order to make recommendations and possibly even set policy on something so that we're setting it accurately and we're making recommendations that make sense. I think that we have some, I say we, but it's more our recreation director because she has access to the website. Chris and I had noticed, as I'm sure some of you also have as well, that there's also documents missing from there. And one of those documents that was missing was the updated fee schedule, which is going to be an issue on an agenda item a couple down from now. So I think we need to finish flushing some stuff out and come back to this agenda item, see what transpires with our recreation director. Is she going to be going out on, a longer not permanent, but a longer full-time maternity leave? Like, because right now, the way she had originally left it was that she was going to attempt to work some partial hours during her leave, or now it's sounding like there might be a change. So it would be nice to know what we're looking at as we go into the fall. I think that the unfortunate situation right now of some of our programming or the recreation programming being canceled I think because of that, it's going to give us a little bit of time to make sure that what our next steps as a commission make sense and work for the recreation programming that we're trying to see happen. I don't know if anybody has any other thoughts on that.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with what you just said. And, you know, the way programs can be run is going to continue to change depending on what happens this fall. They're already warning everybody about around October, there may be some issues. But I hope we go into the fall and winter with and I say limited, one or two or three outdoor programming events that, you know, they don't have to run a week. They're a half day, they're 1 day, one and dones. Because I think if we have some programming if we can locate them in our parks and get people into the parks, then as we move forward with everything we'd like to do over the next few years, there'll be more people that are familiar with the properties and either with us or not with us on funding and or whatever we need to do there.
Yep, and I'd like to see some more, I'd like to see some community, just general community programming, even during school hours, something like, you know, a walking group that, you know, I would volunteer to head that up. Just people are looking for, you know, inexpensive and free things to do during the day, and they don't want to do them alone. We have wonderful trail systems in Lunenburg. The Conservation Commission has worked extremely hard to make sure that we have those, and you know, they're doing signage for them. I mean, it's a great network of trails that we have, and you know, something as simple as that to me is a great community activity as well. And it can be for, you know, whatever ages. You know, I think that there's a lot of consideration that can be given to different types of programming, maybe programming that might fit better for our community. So, all right, so we will make sure that as information comes in, it can get out to people. We'll get some answers to questions that were asked at the beginning of the meeting as well by Ms. Brzezowski. And then, you know, we're going to do our best. I will encourage everybody. I don't know how many times I need to say it. Please email us. Please reach out to us. Please have conversations with us. It's the only way a program like this is going to grow. It's going to require a lot of input. And if you have a question and you don't get a response, just email us. And if we're not the right people, we're going to tell you who to go to. So, you know, we're going to do our best to make sure that our recreation program, our department, I don't even know what you want to call it, a one-man show, has what they need to be successful. And I think as a commission, we're going to work hard to make sure that they have that. So does anybody else have anything on that before I go back up to number 8? All righty. All right. So number 8 is prioritization of park projects, including the Marshall Park track. This is a combination request from Anna, who has some great ideas on why this is needed, and Dave, who had asked for the Marshall Park track to be discussed again.
If I could, as the kickoff to this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because my memory of things that happened in the past sometimes become clouded with my desires rather than what we actually talked about. Only occasionally though. But I seem to remember a conversation in one of our open meetings around the time we were setting goals for the commission and talking about the master plan and what we wanted to see included in the master plan. We separated out 3 items as action items that we wanted to move forward with sooner rather than later and not wait for the master plan. And those 3 projects were, at the time we were calling it a pocket park at Marshall Pond, but since then that has morphed into just getting a couple of picnic tables and appropriate grading right next to the town pound at Marshall Park. The cleanup did a nice job of cleaning up that area in preparation for the tables. And we seemingly had money going into tomorrow available for purchasing tables, but I don't believe anything moved forward with that. Secondly, was the basketball courts. Again, the spring cleanup. They did a lot of work down there. There's a lot more that could be done. Invasives, as we've talked about, climbing up the fences and stuff. And, you know, make a portion of that court usable with a very small investment in labor and money until we roll that into the master plan as a major overhaul or remove it completely and put something else there. So still, as a short-term goal, we've moved forward a little bit with that, but I think it needs to go a little further. And lastly, there was a lot of discussion and has been a lot of discussion about the track and the surface and the vegetation growing out of the surface of the track and the organic material that's built up on this into the cinder on the surface. And, you know, I started late last summer, early fall, talking to a few people and actually physically going down there and doing some test holes all the way around the track. So we know what we've got for cinder all the way around. I actually rototilled a section and raked it out, and I didn't have a roller, so I ran over it with my truck. And the truck didn't level it as well as a roller would, but I think for very little money and a little bit of labor and a lot of volunteerism, which is out there ready to go, we could get the surface of the track back to a cinder surface, rolled, firm, and walkable. It may still be a little wet because the drainage at Marshall Park is non-existent. And that could be dealt with, assuming the track stays in its present form through the master plan. The drainage and resetting of that would be a major expense, and that could be rolled into the master plan in my eyes. After that long introduction, I'll pass it back to the chair.
Thank you. So, Anna.
Yes. So, you know, that's, so what Dave just said is kind of what I wanted. I want us to start having a list of the things that we want to do and kind of prioritize them. Because, you know, I know these are 3 things. I know I have a couple on my to-do list, and we have the Marshall Park plan. And I just want to I'd like us to have a list of these projects of things we want to do, and maybe just create, you know, three columns of on hold, working on it, and just focus our energy on fewer projects and getting them done. Because big things come up. One thing that has become very clear to us is we need rectangular fields for the parks. I think, you know, the schools are busy, and no matter what, schools are going to be busy. They also have limited parks. So we have properties that we can tap into it. You know, what are the actions on that? So what I would like us is to just put a whole list of everything we have talked about it, and just create, you know, put it as on hold, working on, in progress, or top of the line, something. Because I feel that as we added more people to this commission, we all came in with more ideas of what we can do, and it'll be great to just get to the finish line on a few that are important to us. And when I say us, I mean the community.
I mean, I agree. And I think we also need it so that when, throwing Rob under the bus on this one, when Rob comes to me at the end of May and says, hey, there's some funds left, what projects need to be done, it would be nice for him to have a list of where we have prioritized things. And I don't think a single prioritization needs to happen. I just think that as we add things to it, we put it on the list where it needs to be, because some things will always outrank something else, such as the telephone poles that are about to fall into Marshall Pond. So no, I agree. I definitely agree.
I can create a Google Doc and share with everyone, including Rob. And then we can just add stuff to it, and we can maybe discuss in our next meeting and prioritize it going forward. And Rob too, if there was, once you see the list, if there are things that you think you can tackle on in the near future, let's say, over the next 3 months, that would be something that would be helpful for us,
Yeah, I can certainly, I can have some input on that. That's fine.
Okay.
I think that would be a living document too. That's something that will, just continue to be updated and projects added to, and, they may sit on there for a while, but if again, like Karen just said, if we get to May one year and we've got an appropriate amount of money available left, looks like it's going to be left through July 1, and we have a project that fits that dollar amount that may not be the top priority, but is a high priority, then maybe we all put our heads together and say, yeah, let's get this one done this year. Because next year it may have to be something that's 50% less costly or whatever. I think I agree. If we have that list and we have a little bit of a background as to what the dollar amounts are involved with any particular project or improvements, then we can all get together and Rob could take a look at the list and say, just mention to the commission, I think we can do this one. What do you think? Just as an opinion, not telling you whether you should do it or you shouldn't do it, but I think the communication part of it will go a long way, and all of us pushing to move the parks in the positive direction that we've been talking about for the last year and a half, 2 years.
I agree. Susanna?
Yeah, just to Dave's first point, I was under the impression that we were all in agreement about the track getting fixed up this spring. Is that not true?
So
We talked about it, but there was never a vote.
Can we vote on it?
we can, I guess my question, and we can, if somebody wants to motion in a second, that's fine. Then I can open up discussion, but I'd have a couple of questions on that whole thing too. Because I think a lot of our discussion took place before. I think the Marshall Park, the going in front of the master plan, going in front of capital planning, I think we always thought that was like not going to happen. And, that's sort of what we were banking on. And now that it's here and looks like it may come to fruition, I don't know what little money means when Dave says it could be little money. I do think a track there would be awesome. And if it truly is really little money, maybe it's worth now doing it. But I guess what would happen if we spent this money and next year we're looking at, the funds have come forward and we have the money that we need to move to the next phase after the master planning. And what if the track needs to be moved or something? I guess I just wouldn't want to be throwing money away either.
All right. What kind of money are we talking about, Dave? Do you have any clue?
I cannot give you a dollar amount. Rob and I have talked about this a little bit, and he's been approached by a couple, at least one, if not two people. I've been approached by 2 or 3 people that are willing and have the equipment available to do what we need, do most of what we need to do there. I think it needs to be a coordinated effort between, but it's Rob's call. I mean, it's care and maintenance of the park. So it's Rob's call as to how it gets done or whether it even does get done. But, my vision is a cosmetic resurfacing at this point, which should be very inexpensive. Somebody prove me wrong, that's fine. I think the commission, I would like to see the commission vote this evening to recommend moving forward with looking at, and if feasible and within, the funds available, to do a cosmetic resurfacing of the track. I mean, in my eyes, it means scraping some of the organic matter off the surface, which is rather thin, actually. Get the active growth off the surface, which is a scrape, or there's a couple of machines that have been offered that can actually grind into that surface, and we can decide how deep we go and separate out some of that fine material within the machine. So there's a number of different ways to go. There's volunteers with equipment out there that have expressed an interest in helping out and getting it done. So that's where it stands in my eyes. I honestly think that it's going to be short money to do a cosmetic makeover of that track, so it looks like it did 25 years ago, a black cinder track rolled out flat that you can walk on without sinking into it, hopefully, if we don't have a lot of ground surface water. And then look at it as a, where it fits into the master plan, whether it exists after the master plan or does not. That's all part of the planning in the master plan.
Yeah, I think we should go ahead with it, because if it's short money and we get, even if everything goes perfectly otherwise, even if the master plan dictates that we move it, we'll still get, what, 2 or 3 years out of a fixed up track, revitalized track, and get more people.
Rob, would you agree with that?
So
If we do a cosmetic?
can I just make one comment before we go to Rob?
Yep.
So, in terms of resource, a lot of times we think of money as being the major cause of, of something getting done or not, but sometimes it's resource and ability to getting it done.
Mhm.
One thing, so I'm agreeing with everything that we have said, and that is one of the reasons that I think having a list will be good. One approach that we took with the light posts that are about to fall in the pond was, we said, let's take a vote, which I think is what Dave is asking, and then let's bring it to Rob and work with him and get an idea of timing on that. But it's sometimes it's not just money, is the ability to do it. I don't know Rob's entire staff, but I know it's not 100 people that he can just pull to do one project. So we gotta be realistic when we do these votes, and what exactly we are asking is, I think it's good to have the vote. And I think it's just how we word that request to Rob in a way that it's sensitive to his, not just money, but also resources that he has.
Yeah, I think it should come across as the desire of the board for this, of the commission, for this to happen. Can we have a conversation about the ins and outs of making it happen, and is it feasible? And that's Rob's wheelhouse right there.
Right. Yeah,
So
so go ahead, Rob, sorry.
So if I might, I'm certainly not opposed to the commission coming to me with requests or wish lists, or, we'd like to do this. Unfortunately, you're at the mercy of availability and money. So as far as the track goes, my understanding was, as Dave said, we have some interested parties. So I am certainly open to and trying to accept that kind of help whenever I can, because obviously it's good for the town. It's good for maintaining relationships with local contractors and people who want to provide these services to us. So in that regard, yes, I'm happy to help and try and coordinate things and work with contractors. So in the end, as it relates to the master plan, obviously, if it's a priority to get it done and you want to do it, I can certainly work towards that end. What I don't want to happen is accept the donation of labor and time and material from a contractor to then turn around in a couple or 3 years and tell that person, oh, hey, by the way, we're eliminating the track, entirely, and burning bridges. So I think that's something you have to consider as well. It's, I don't take when people offer their services lightly. I obviously it's a big commitment for them, and they're doing it because they, their heart is into something. So that said, I'll, do and proceed with, if that's what you tell me you'd like me to do, I will work towards, getting that done. But that's entirely up to you. As far as the cost goes, it's going to depend on, what kind of commitment we're getting from someone who wants to help us. I have my thoughts on how it can be done, and I've had some conversations with landscape contractors on equipment that could be used, and their thoughts on how it could get done. So I definitely think it's something can be done. It's the cost is the big unknown. It depends on how much volunteerism we get, with equipment, and if we have to add material to it. There's some unknowns. The existing condition plays into it a lot. Are we going to need to treat it with chemicals to keep future growth from happening? So there's a lot of considerations, but I'm open to whatever you decide, and whether it's part of the master plan or you wait because of the master plan until we know more. That's entirely up to you folks.
I mean, in the grand scheme, I'm supportive of it. I mean, I think it's a great idea. I totally respect what Rob's saying, though, with, somebody volunteering to do the work and then we're going to move it. I mean, that's on the same line of my thought process, even with spending the money but it could be, we could be 5-10 years out from executing a master plan. And that's the other piece too. I mean, we can be doing the consulting work right now, and then we have to come up with the funding for how it's going to work.
Realistically, we're 3 years from even thinking about being wholeheartedly into the project at Marshall Park, especially if we're going to go after grant funding rather than using taxpayers' money. So, 3 years, a cosmetic makeover of the surface, giving us 3 years of good use of the track, or possibly more, I think is worth it. I don't know how the rest of the commission feels.
And it's getting more people into the park, and not just getting more people interested in Marshall Park and engaged in the design process and the future of it.
I don't know. I envision it as what Karen was talking about earlier. Get the track cleaned up so you're not walking on wet grass and mud and this other stuff. Resurface it the best we can, as inexpensively as we can, and then programming. Do them Wednesday morning walks or Sunday morning walks or whatever. There are people, as you say, that would prefer not to be out there walking by themselves, even on an oval track. I am almost positive that you could attract a steady clientele that would walk as a group at a given time.
Yeah, I would agree with like what Suzanne said. It will draw people into the park. I think it would, provide a little vested interest in the future of Marshall Park. So I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it done. I think we are a little ways away. Assuming it's not a costly endeavor, I think it may be worth the investment, and respecting what Rob said as well. Any volunteered services and so forth in the line with goodwill, and so we make sure that there is an understanding. Like, hey, you got you're volunteering your time or equipment or what have you, or it's a discounted cost, or whatever the arrangement is. Just making sure they understand that there's a possibility that 2, 3, 5 years down the line, I mean, the track may move. But so as long as we have that understanding with whoever's going to assist, and their understanding of that and respectful of that and so forth, and I think we're operating above board and doing it the right way.
One comment I'd like to make is that, in my gut, I don't see the 90-foot diamond going anywhere unless the school builds their own baseball field. If that does not happen, that 90-foot diamond's not going anywhere. The town is very supportive of school athletic programs, and they're not going to let us short circuit their baseball program. That's my gut feeling. That's coming from me, nobody else.
Has anybody been hit by lightning while on a Zoom call? Because I have a feeling I'm going to be the first victim.
There's a lot outside right now. Mike,
If you see
lighting
me
up next to
ducking,
me.
it's literally outside my window.
Yeah, it's lighting up
there in the
outside.
back.
man.
Maybe I'll just
Yeah.
pull the shade. Maybe if I can't see it. Okay. I'm happy to entertain a motion and put it in front of the commission if somebody wants to make it. I just don't know what the exact motion is you guys would like to see.
I would make a motion to at least two of the three that we've talked about, the pocket park and the track. I would make a motion that we move forward trying to improve those two areas and fix those up. With the picnic tables at Marshall Park, I know, like Dave alluded to, the volunteers during the park's cleanup, they did a great job to clean up that whole area outside the pound. That was the Boys and Girls Club volunteers that had helped with that effort. And all the acorns are gone. It's a clean surface. I think a little bit of soil or whatnot to maybe cover up some of the roots and so forth that are showing there to make it a little safer to walk through there. But then adding a couple of picnic tables does another thing to draw people towards the pond. And the in the park area, and starts to create a little bit of a vision there. And then I would in conjunction with that motion to fix up the track.
That was the longest motion I've ever heard.
I'm sorry, it is like a motion, isn't it?
I
Yeah, it's a
know,
little long.
strike together in the
So
minute.
motion, I guess, would be to finish off the pocket park at the pond and do a resurface of the track.
So those would be at the top of our priority list at this point in time.
Correct. Yeah, having gone into the basketball court area and so forth, that's it's going to be workable. That's a lot. There's a lot that needs to be done in there to even get it usable right now. So I think that's a bigger thing.
So his motion is to finish off the park his motion is to put forward our request for consideration of finishing off the pocket park at Marshall Pond and resurfacing of the existing track.
Correct.
So is a request to the DPW director and, okay, just that part.
It's
It's gonna be a specific,
you tell me.
specify. Chris's motion, just adding, request the DPW director to do what Chris just said. And I would add, and more than just request, if possible, to give us a timeline of when we should expect to see some progress on those areas.
Okay. So we have,
Do we have a motion? It
Okay.
seems like we have a dialogue, but I'm not so sure we got a motion.
well, that's why I tried to sort of streamline again. So the motion is to put forward,
How about recommend move forward with the pocket park at Marshall Pond and the cosmetic resurfacing of the track at Marshall Park?
that's
You
your
good
motion,
with that,
Chris?
Chris?
Correct, but and I think Anna was adding to the motion that we are making the recommendation to the DPW and requesting a timeline when that might be able to occur.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
All right, any other discussion before we move to a vote on that?
You have a formal second?
I did. I had
Second.
Anna.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So Dave,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Anna,
Aye.
Susanna,
Aye.
and a very reluctant yes from myself. But I would have been overruled anyway if I had said no. So, all right. Rob was here. He heard that. So, yeah. Okay. That one's done.
Do we have another Marshall Park agenda item below this or not?
Not really. So hit it here if you'd like.
Okay, I'd just like to bring up something that I had a conversation with at the Memorial Day exercises with a couple of the Boy Scout troop leaders. They do not presently have any candidates anywhere near close to needing projects for Eagle.
Okay.
They've got a very young group, the next generation of the troop. But I mentioned to them that there were a couple of things, and again, this is cosmetic things at Marshall Park that volunteer groups might be able to do for virtually no expense to the town, as long as it's allowed by the town or any liability is taken care of. And one of the things I mentioned to them, when we went on our walk, there was already the makings of a trail, basically from the Powell Field area to Marshall Pond and that pine grove overlooking Marshall Pond. And with the commission's permission, I'd like to go over there with the troop and have them take a look at that. And they're interested in possibly doing it as a troop project rather than an individual eco project. And that would be possibly doing something to improve the plank walkways that are already there, and cleaning up brush along the trail and making it a little bit more formal walking trail. At some point, we'd probably need to come up with an access point, because as we all found out, climbing up over that hill to the parking lot at Powell Field was not a lot of fun. So yeah, doing a little bit of work as a volunteer youth group in town, and developing a walking trail that could be marked and labeled and used year round, because I snowshoed through there all last winter when we had snow cover, and it was a nice snowshoe through there.
Okay.
I think that's a good possibility. I just think there's, I think I sort of drift back to what Rob talked about in terms of people giving him time and then things changing and so forth.
Yeah, but you're not going to tear
that's
that
a-
forest apart.
No, but I think if, I mean, depending on what a plan could look like and so forth, that, a trail sort of scenario there could change. And I'd hate to see, if it's, I guess I would say if it is a younger group of scouts right now, then we may be okay to start to maybe get into the master plan sort of scenario and start to gain some insight of what things might look like, and then have them assist with that trail portion if we know it's not going to change, or we're not planning on putting a playground over there, or a pavilion, or what have you, wherever we decide and it makes sense to drop whatever items we think we want to add to Marshall Park. I would just be cautious to have kids go through there and do too much before we sort of have some kind of game plan.
I disagree. I totally disagree. And it frustrates me that we hold back on things because we have this great thought of a plan for the future. The town's been doing that for 25 years. That's why we have a building that's falling in on itself, and all the problems that we have with buildings in town and other things that should have happened 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 25 years ago. Myself as a kid growing up in this town, I was okay with doing a project, even if I didn't ask about it. I just went ahead and did it sometimes. And those were the times you could do stuff like that, and people appreciated it. And I didn't care if it just lasted through the 1 year, but it was the camaraderie and the knowledge that I did something to help improve the town, even if it was for a very short period of time. So I just had to say that, because I'm totally frustrated with the way things do not move forward in this town, and this commission is dragging because now we suddenly have money and a master plan ahead of us.
Dave, I don't know. I hear you. I think, when I interviewed for my appointed position, I said, this town has really relied on a lot of volunteer work to get a lot of done, and we gotta figure out as we grow how to, be, still keep that as a resource. So I agree with you on that, but we also don't wanna, one thing you just said that kind of like scared me a little bit is we don't want someone to just think that, it is okay to go build a new dugout somewhere or a new snack shack. So it needs to be coordinated through us, because if we
And I
don't,
did qualify that. That was in the past,
Right.
with me growing up. And
Right.
that definitely was in the past. We don't want stuff like that. And that's why I'm asking permission to take the
Right.
troop over there to take a look at it and come back to this commission
So-
with a
so-
proposal.
so let's have a vote on your proposal. I think, and that's, fair.
So my
Um,
take on this is that I don't think you actually need our permission to do that. I think that if you want to take the group of boys over and walk the property, and if they see something that they would like to put forward as an idea of a project that they want to complete, they are welcome to put a proposal together and present it to us in the same way that the Eagle Scout kids did. When they, we have some bat houses, and that was an approval that came through our commission. And I had joined them over there and taken a look, and he pointed some things out, and then he brought it back to the commission. I don't think you necessarily need permission from us to get a proposal going, if that's what these young men would like to do. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I could be the dissenting opinion on that one. I'm fine with that.
And in my vision, the first step would be to have them develop something and let Rob review it first, because ultimately he's responsible for those properties, their maintenance and or whatever you want to call this. And then if his initial approval goes on it, then bring it to the commission as, this is what has been discussed and reviewed with Rob, and this is what the plan is. So that everybody's involved with it and on the same page before anything happens.
So does anybody else think that, go ahead, Susanna.
it's the same concept as the track revitalization in my head too, is just if someone's eager to make a connection to the Marshall Pond from Marshall Park proper right now, as a project, that sounds like a great idea if it's safe and a good design, a good proposal from the Boy Scouts. I don't think we should say no to that, even if in 2 years a landscape architect comes in and says that something else should be there. I don't think the Boy Scouts are going to be upset if a wooden bridge has to be moved or something.
Yeah,
And
I'm certainly not against the thought,
Yeah.
and I don't mean to convey that I'm against the thought of that happening. I just, along the same lines of what we talked about with volunteers putting effort forward, if the caveat is there that, yes, we'd love for you to put in a trail or cut a trail to the pond or what have you, so long as that group, knows that, hey, it may not be a permanent fixture within the long-term scenario as you constructed in a project. It may not be a long-term fixture in the park.
Yeah.
that's
Just be
all.
clear, 90% of that trail is already there. It's just enhancing what's there and maybe coming up with a access point.
I'd say the more people we can get into the park, the sooner the better.
I just don't want to come to a meeting 6 months from now and say, well, we didn't vote this as a priority or a project or an okay to move forward with it. And that's why nothing's happened with it. I mean, I just got that with one of our earlier agenda items. I got that a week or so ago, and it set me off then, just like it just set me off a few minutes ago.
And I mean, I'm fine if the body feels that making a motion to vote on to allow them to go in to look at the area to create a proposal is what they would like to do. We wouldn't stop anybody from going in anyway. It's a public park. And if
Right.
it's, but I'm comfortable with whatever you guys decide.
I don't think we need to vote for that until a proposal comes in.
Agreed.
That's my thought.
I agree.
I mean, once we
That-
have the proposal,
That's fine. I've said my piece, as long as, like I said, a month from now, I don't get, well, we didn't really vote on moving forward with this, so now we got to discuss it again.
Well,
The
I mean-
the
that's just
alternative is
running
Dave
around
can't
in
make a
circles.
motion, right? The alternative, David, you can make a motion. And we
Yeah,
can't, vote.
but
You're
I
free, you're free
prefer-
as part of the
I
commission. to make a
prefer that
motion.
one of the other members of the commission make the motion if there's going to be a motion. If not, then I will still move forward with it as we've discussed and have the scouts come through the process of, touching base with the DPW director and bringing a fairly finalized proposal to the commission as to what they're looking to do and how they're looking to do it.
Okay, I say just, have them go through and bring us the proposal. They may get there and they may not even be interested in doing anything. And they may
Okay.
get there and they may fall in love with it. But I would think, I mean, I know I would entertain any proposal that was brought to us, regardless of how big or small it was.
Being recorded, Dave. We're all here. We're all.
That's one of the advantages of.
I'm an Eagle Scout. I would
these-
certainly listen to a Boy Scout bringing us a
Yeah.
proposal.
Yeah,
One of the advantages of staying remote like this is that they are recorded. I'm still waiting to hear of the circumstances of the meeting recently that was not recorded.
I know. We all are. All right, so our next agenda item is Little League Spring 2021 fees, the portable bathroom, and the dumpster that's down there. So let's start with the Spring 2021 fees. This is my understanding of the situation, is that we as a commission voted, I believe it was November timeframe, to increase our fees. That information never made its way back to the Little League program. So when they opened up their registration, they based their registration on last year's user fees. So when they sent their payment in, which was around $1,700, they sent it in based on last year's. The recreation director did email back and inquire why that was, and that was the very end of March, and she also included the current rates. So since those rates are set by the commission, I think it needs to be a commission decision on what, if anything, needs to be done for their spring season fees. I'm sort of walking on both sides of the street on this one. I feel like the decision was made at a public meeting. Those rates had been set, and we'll never reach, it's the same thing with the schools. The schools makes a change in their rates, their user fees for, say, a private organization to use their fields. They don't necessarily send out notifications. It's up to the organization to inquire with them before the season starts, or before they start registration, to make sure nothing's changed. So I walk that side, but at the same time, I also know how early their registration works, and there was nothing on our website. There were no updated forms, so it's not like it was as easy as looking on our website for any updated information. So looking to see from you folks tonight whether or not we just allow them to stay with the user fees that they've paid, which were based on the 2020 season, or what we want to do to move forward.
So I've thought about it a fair bit, and I kind of equated, I guess, to like the school athletic fees when they increased. The school sent out a communication once it was voted on, and those fees were increased and so forth. It wasn't anything that everyone was always happy about because it was a pretty significant increase. But there was a notification that came out about that in a timely manner once the vote happened. We went through a series of months where we didn't communicate that with the Little League program when their fees were already established and their season was essentially underway. I mean, beginning of April, end of March, beginning of April. I mean, they're pretty close to locked in at that point, I think, with what the season would look like. So I mean, my take is, I think we're with what has been paid. If those were established and communicated to them back in November, then I think it's a different story. But I don't know. It's my two cents.
Susanna?
We voted on this in November
I,
and registration opened in April. For this.
no, it had to have opened before that because they tried to pay us, or they did pay us. The email communication that I have is from sometime in March.
Okay,
March or February.
They were notified end of March of the increase in fees
Right, they were.
of what we voted
notified.
on in November.
Mhm.
So it was a 4-month gap, and
who was responsible for conveying that information?
Well, I'm not sure,
Not
so.
trying to throw anybody under the bus. I'm not sure.
No, I know, I'm not really sure how we left it
Uh-huh.
at that meeting, because I didn't go back to and watch the meeting that we voted, which is why I'm saying I think it was November.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Karen, playing the devil's advocate, we had a meeting previous to that we discussed some numbers, but didn't finalize them because Kayla was not there. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
So there was some, and was a representative of the Little League there for that meeting? I believe they
The
were, weren't
first
they?
one, but not the second one.
Right. So they were, whoever was at that meeting, I don't know if it was Steve or not, was aware that we were discussing changes to the fee structure, but they took it upon themselves to not communicate, to your point, not communicate back to the rec director to ask what the rates actually were the rates adjusted and what are they? I agree. There's two sides to this coin.
But they might have
And-
just checked the website and there was nothing
And
there.
there was no update there.
there's
yeah.
no information on the website.
I think that's going to come back to a policy thing that we've got to put in place where when an entity turns in their paperwork for their new season, that the rates are there, or they understand that the rates are under review and may change, just before the beginning of their season or something to that effect, because you leave yourself wide open if they don't bother to ask you. And
Right.
that's one way to approach it as an organization. Well, don't ask, then you've got a leg, you seemingly have a leg to stand on because they weren't told.
Right.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I clearly, I think, communication is something that we need to work on. I think the events of this past week has proven that.
Yep.
I see it that we need to improve on our how we communicate. I remember once asking if we can, some of these decisions, some of the things that we talk about, if it can be immediately posted on the website, because we control the website with Kayla. This might be one of the things that we can help. Like maybe we can make one of us a website editor and just post some of these things in one source. The Little League is here to support, the community. If they didn't raise the price, it's not because they're pocketing the money. I don't know how they would crawl themselves out of that, because they would have, I don't know how, because they're already paid, they already collected the fees. I think it's more of a question looking forward. We need to do better communicating certain things. Posting, we have a website that we control, unlike the one from the town. We should be doing a better job there. And I don't know how the Little League can go back to parents and say, hey, your fees actually more for the season that just ended.
I agree. I just didn't want to, where the fees were set by us, I didn't want to, number one, waive it without the consensus being that's what we should do. And number two, I thought we needed to be aware of the fact that there was a late notification of that. And I'm not sure what the fix is on it. I understand what Chris is saying with the user fees. I think of this more as the the fees that the school sets for the use of their fields. And, when those changes were made, they were just made during a public meeting. They were put onto their website. They didn't notify anybody of those that I am
Well,
aware.
Did
So
we put on our website?
we did it. That's what I mean. That's
Right.
what-
Yeah, it's a missing step.
right.
We have
There's
we have very few customers within our parks properties.
Yep.
And I kind of look at them as they would be a customer of of the parks properties. And I think with the few customers that we have, we need to have timely communication to them when we're making policy change. Same way we do with the beach. As soon as we had the beach, fees established, we started to advertise those. They still need to be on our website. They're not on the or the beach policy, excuse me, rental policies and so forth aren't on the website, but the fees are listed. So I mean, that's just, I think it just boils down to communication and doing it timely. Because had that been communicated in November, I think it's a totally different discussion. I don't think we're having the discussion. I think they would have been able to probably adjust their registration fees and so forth.
So I'm looking for a motion to accept the payment that Little League has made as payment in full for their spring 2021 season.
I'll make a motion to accept their payment in full.
Second.
Any further
Discussion.
discussion?
From my understanding of reading the email, they have agreed that they will use the updated rates going forward after the spring season that's already in progress and paid for. I'm just for information, I'm wondering, what is their next season? Do they have a fall season or do they have a
have a summer season.
summer season?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to pull up the email and I will forward it to everybody right now. Where are we?
So if I interpret the comments in there as you read them,
Teams, yeah. Filling out
that-
2 summer teams on new form now.
okay, and the comment was made that they're very willing, now that they've been notified, to impose those rates going forward. So I would assume that includes the summer season.
That is
Yeah.
correct.
So, yeah, if the motion specifically says spring season, then I have no problem with it.
Okay. And it does. And I did just forward the email to everybody so they could see it themselves since we referenced it. Anybody else have anything before I move to a vote? All right, Susanna,
Aye.
Anna.
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
and an aye for myself. All right, now the next piece on this, ironically enough, also created before the law of Monday, the portable bathrooms and the dumpsters. So currently, Little League provides a portable bathroom at, I believe, at Fitzgerald, at Marshall, and at
Natalie.
McNally. They also have a dumpster over at Marshall and a storage unit at Fitzgerald, I believe. I
Is there a dumpster at McNally? I'm trying to remember.
don't know. I don't remember.
There's a storage unit at McNally.
Where is that one, Dave?
Over off of the first baseline beyond the fence.
Okay. So I didn't put the storage units on there. I actually forgot about them until just now. But again, this is another agenda item that I think is going to probably be worthy of morphing into something else because it's with everything that went on Monday. So at a minimum, we need to create policy around porta potties, whether they're put on there by Little League or whether we decide as a commission that it's something that we should be providing. Including cleanliness, how often they're cleaned. According to Steve Chow, who's the president of Little League, it sounds like their supplier or their vendor, whatever it's called, just didn't do as good of a job as they have in the past in keeping it clean. But that's also a hard area too, because, coming off of a weekend, there's, you have people down there and people do what people do. And there was a mess in that bathroom. So originally, this discussion was going to be, what do we do in terms of trying to ensure that the porta potties that are down there are suitable, and if that meant asking them to lock them at the end of their use, that's that would be acceptable because they are their units. But now I'm wondering if it needs to turn into a bigger discussion on whether or not we should just be providing the facilities down there, the porta potties down there, because in the grand scheme of things, the Little League isn't the only program that's using these, because they've left them unlocked. Other programming, whether it be our programming, whether it be other youth sports that go down there, or the high school, their baseball programs, they're using those porta potties. So, and I've been to, sorry, that would be my child. I've been to fields where there are no porta potties. So, the other answer could be, we just don't want porta potties there at all. So
I think as a sport, they might be required to have one. Like I'm basing it off of the LISA comment, or like LISA. I believe LISA was required to have a porta potty at any fields where there's sports.
I
And
don't
I know
think
this off season, like this season, we've locked it after practices at night and so forth. Unlocked it when it's when practices are going on, and then locked it after practice.
And Rob, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, because you know the soccer field circuit as well as I do. I've been to plenty of soccer fields that do not have any bathroom facilities. And we do one of those, you look for the nearest Dunkin' Donuts when you get into town, and you go before you get to the field. So, we could certainly look into it. I did, in anticipation of having this discussion this evening, before this all even started, had called the Board of Health to find out what the requirements were for the Board of Health. Did they have requirements that needed to be followed for porta potties? Because some towns require permits for that. We don't have anything in Lunenburg. There's no requirements. I think it's based on time. I think it's based on the length of the activity. For example, the farmers market needed to have bathrooms for their vendor. But when I've said to her, and by her, I mean the woman at the Lunenburg office, but what about these programs that only run 45 to 50 minutes? She said, oh no, you don't need them for that. So I'm not quite sure, and I couldn't gather enough information from her to know what the minimum is to needing to have bathroom facilities.
The Earth Day event a few years ago triggered that also. It needed to be available for the vendors that were there at Wallace Park, but it was obviously open to the general public too.
Yeah.
But that's why that ended up there, and we negotiated a really good deal for that one event.
Right. So, I don't know. I hate kicking the can down the road further, but as this week's gone on, what I was anticipating has changed. And I don't know whether we want to be creating policy for other groups for putting them there, or whether or not we need to investigate actually having, Park Commission or Town of Lunenburg porta potties there, versus having each vendor or each user bring in their own. Because Steve Chow did make a good point that if they lock theirs at the end of the day, and then Ravens baseball's in there and they want a porta potty, then they could put one in, and then it could end up locked at the end of the day. Now we got 2 locked porta potties, and then we've got the high school coming in and they may want them, and then they put their own in, and we don't want to have 3. This isn't porta potty central. Susanna?
I think Marshall for sure. I'm not sure what other programming happens on the other fields other than Little League, but I think Marshall for sure should have Lunenburg porta potties there. Because we have outside baseball teams. We're trying to run programs there where we want to run more programs there, and we want people there just recreating. So it seems like we should have our own facilities there.
And I full honesty here. I mean, if it was ours, if that porta potty had been ours on Monday, I would have been screaming on the phone to the people right away. You know, part of me is being selfish in this to say if they are ours, it's an easier fix because we can call and take care of it ourselves versus having to, you know, create a policy that says if you don't do it, we're going to call on your behalf and you foot the bill for it. I don't know. Rob, do we have contracts at all with any portable toilet companies?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Do you like that we create work for you?
Absolutely, sure. Why not?
I guess the other question, Rob, is have you had any experience in other municipalities with that type of a contract?
I haven't personally. I'm trying to think back. I believe we had porta potties in Gardner in some of the parks. Actually, you know what? I have to rethink that. I don't think we did. And I know if we did, they would have been a constant nuisance problem for us. I know where I grew up, we always had a porta potty at the park across from my house. The town ran, you know, morning playground during the summer that was, you know, a lot of years ago. So I guess I can't compare that, but I do believe they still put one out at that same park today. So I think some towns do, some towns don't. I suppose it depends on the use of those parks and what programs are being run and which programs require them. So that's a factor in, you know, in the future when we have programming on looking at the locations. And there's other factors as well. Emergency shelter for a day like today, where, you know, you've got to run for cover at the drop of a hat when you see the sky turn on you. So there's other things as well. So there's a lot of considerations.
Would you,
yeah.
through the chair, would you be willing to get even a verbal number from one or two contractors to service? I'm thinking 5 porta potties for the 3 major parks. Tell me, anybody on the commission, tell me if I'm missing something. 2 or 3 at Marshall, 1 at McNally, 1 at Fitzgerald, and I'm on the fence about
Well,
Oh, Wallace.
Wallace.
Well, I
Yeah,
wouldn't be on the fence about
Wallace had one. Wallace had one up until recently. I don't know if there's one there now or not.
Who would have paid for it though? Who would have put it there?
It must have been the town because nobody else was. Although there was a basketball group, wasn't there, that used the court on a regular basis? I don't know who paid for that, but there was one there.
Yeah. So let's get some prices.
Yeah.
Rob, I don't mind doing the legwork on it. I seem to know how to kick that kind of stuff around.
You're gonna kick the can?
Yeah, well, I was going to use another word, but I don't think it was appropriate in case any children were watching, so I won't. But
Yeah, that's, if you want to do that, Karen, go ahead. If you need anything from me, you know where I am.
yeah, no, but that one I can handle.
Okay.
I think, in that regard, just looking at security of, so it's a momentary sort of thing. I mean, in an instant, we can have what we had on Monday.
Yep.
You know, that's my only, and I understand what you're saying. Like we have it would be under our care. And so we can address that more easily than,
So
you know,
here,
Monday was allowed, but I think we also need to maybe look at the security of those and, you know, when are they locked? When are they open? You know, I mean, there's really not a reason for a porta potty to be open at Marshall Park at 11 at night. You know,
I do think that we are responsible for, like, the one that's on the property right now. You know, they've been putting one, I can't even fault them for not asking permission because they've literally been there for probably a decade, so well before me coming on, and I'm not sure they ever leave because I've seen them there. I feel like I see them there year round. So I feel like we're responsible for it regardless, whether or not it's put there by us or whether or not it's put there by the Little League. The Board of Health is going to come back to us if they're disgusting. And they're going to start having that conversation with us, or in this case with Rob. You know, so even if we say we're not doing it ourselves and we have them do, Little League do it, which may make more sense because they're the ones down there. You open it when you get there and you close it when you leave. We're gonna need to have policy on it, if the Little League does it, and we'd probably have to have our own policy on it if we do it. So,
Also may prompt us to revisit usage fees of the field sooner rather than later once we
yeah.
know what it would cost us.
So then there's a dumpster down there, and I did check with Rob yesterday on that dumpster, and Dave has found more times than he cares to count people that just go down and literally dump. The same problem we have everywhere on town, we have down there near the dumpster. But Rob said that his guys don't go down to collect it, so it's got to be their dumpster people that are collecting what's left on the side. So when there's a TV down there, they must be taking it because Rob doesn't, right, Rob? You haven't, it's not your guys taking it.
Yeah, I mean, since spring when this might have started being a problem, I haven't sent anybody down there to do it, and we don't service that dumpster at all. So I'm not aware of any situations where we've gone down and done it.
Yeah. Just to be clear, over the winter, the dumpster itself was full of flat screen TVs and Christmas wrappings and boxes with addresses and names on them. So this is a problem year round because the dumpster's staying there year round. And they, it's got a bar across it with this padlock on it, but all you got to do is pull on the bar and you can open one corner of the cover and you can get just about anything in there. So it's going to continue to be an issue, especially if it's left there year round.
So I guess, Dave, what are you thinking is the issue in your eyes? Because I'm sort of feeling like if the dumpster's there and they understand that they're liable for anything that gets deposited down there, whether or not it's their trash or not, and their people are taking it away, what are you thinking the issue is at that point?
Well, they're the first ones to complain that their dumpsters are being filled up by, not necessarily local residents, area residents, and they're paying good money for this. And what's the commission going to do for us? I mean, it keeps getting thrown back in our court, and it's not our responsibility as far as I'm concerned. But if they're going to continue to do that, then, I mean, at the very minimum, off-season, that dumpster leaves that property.
I definitely
Minimum.
agree with that one. I absolutely agree with that
Yeah.
one. I don't think porta potties or dumpsters should be there through the winter. Susanna?
They did leave this past winter, by the way.
I just know about soccer. Soccer's carry in, carry out, right?
Correct.
For everything. I mean, what's the problem with doing that?
It's not in our park. All of our parks are carry in, carry out.
Dumpster feels like it's not warranted, if you ask me. It's just going to ask for situations like people dropping a TV or a couch off.
Right. One other comment that I'll tie to maybe their feeling that they need a dumpster, and I've been wanting to ask Rob this. Sometime this spring, after the grass started to grow, you had already been talking and had your crews down at all the parks and getting ready to mow lawns, or maybe you'd already mowed once. But one of the times I went into Marshall and I looked in the dumpster, it was full of fertilizer bags, lawn fertilizer bags.
Yeah,
And I'm guessing that your crew had nothing to do with that.
we didn't put down any fertilizer.
No. Okay. See, this is an underlying issue that goes along with everything we're discussing here. Little League has been allowed to do things at these facilities without the town's knowledge and without the commission's knowledge. I think these things need to be identified. They're part of care and maintenance of the parks, and and they're adding the cost of these things that they're doing to the cost for participation in their programs. So, they want both sides when they start complaining. I think we need to have the discussion that they need to stop doing this stuff and let the town do its maintenance of the properties and pay for those maintenance of the properties, and them stop complaining what are they getting for their dollar that they're paying for use of the fields. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. You know, I go back to, we've had this discussion in person. He mentioned it again in the email that he sent that, you know, they wanted consideration for the porta potties that they're paying for monthly. You know, and then he went on to list the projects that they've done. He said they've put in over $70,000 into the facilities in the last 8 years, including drainage and dugouts at McNally. They paid to fix finished fences, the 70-foot wall and drainage at Marshall to protect erosion, which is about $30,000, drainage at Powell, resolving safety issues at Fitzgerald, which was $10,000. You know, I don't know how many of those were done during my tenure on the commission, which has been 5 years. I can tell you these are the projects that I call, when they don't come to us, I tend to call them under the cover of darkness projects. And while they benefit their program, I think when you take monies into consideration, if we have to put some thought into, do they benefit the parks as a whole and our community? Because, you know, some of these will benefit just them. Some of
Well,
it, you know.
I mean, them is us. I mean, are the kids, there are people that are attending the Little League of Lunenburg are part of our community.
No, right. But when I say them, I mean, let me pick out one of these. Drainage and dugouts at McNally. Susanna, that was fast, by the way. Susanna's getting quotes on porta potties as we speak. So, you know, when we talk about drainage and dugouts at McNally, those benefit the users of McNally, and the users of McNally are only our Little League program. So the
Right, but
benefit
our-
of that is that small community, which, yes, they're members of our community,
Right.
you know,
We
but
could theoretically be running the Little League of Lunenburg, you know, like Lunenburg never had a recreation department that, like in Somerville, who ran which was where we are, you know, Somerville Little League was run by the recreation department of Somerville. They ran camps and so forth. I'm just saying I don't like the use of them as a separate from us, because it's us. That's my,
Yeah,
everything you said,
but-
I agree.
But there's some huge issues with them doing that type of work on town property without town meeting permission. I
Well,
mean,
well,
if you
some
want to
of-
do, let me finish my comment. If you want to do work in a town right away, even if it has to do with grading your septic system or anything to that effect, you have to get the okay from town meeting, is my understanding, because it's come to town meeting a number of times. They're taking equipment in there, how they were allowed to do it and work on town property, I just can't fathom it.
So I agree with you, David. I do.
Okay.
I agree with you. And I think, you know, telling me that they're, you know, a dumpster full of fertilizer, you know, when the pond is becoming a mess because of overuse of fertilizer, and I don't think it's just my neighbors, I agree with you 100%. It's just when we think about the children that are part of that league, it is part of our community. It's us. I think I agree with everything. I just don't want to, I do not want to start us versus them versus for their benefit. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
and I guess that's not the way that I'm necessarily trying to make it. I guess what I'm saying is that when a program comes in and they do all kinds of work, the people that benefit from it the most are the people that use it for their programming. And if the Parks Commission had $70,000 in their pocket, and we were able to choose a project that we needed to get done, the question in my mind is, would it be the project that they want, or would it be the project that's highest on our priority list, which would most likely be, you know, a safety concern, or, you know, meet the needs of the majority of the most people in the community? I'm not meaning it to be us against them. I'm just meaning it to be, you know, when somebody goes in and does something like this, it's for the benefit of their program. And I don't know if we would have necessarily made the same decision if we had that same money available to spend.
Agreed.
So,
Agreed
you know,
with
I, just as we, you know, move forward and, you know, take all of this stuff into consideration with fees and everything that's gone on this week, I think we need to, you know, make policy. And I think we need to make quick policy. I think we need to get to work on getting this policy done and stop kicking it down the line of, you know, make a decision on what we're doing with portable toilets, decide what has to be done on the dumpster, and make policy so that none of the stuff that's going on at the fields are being done so that we know about it. And if it's not done so that we know about it, what's the recourse on it? So that's all. I mean, that's where I am. That's just where I am on that.
Okay. Policy
Ro-
regarding field maintenance by third parties. By non,
Rob, do you know where the Parks line dollar amount stands going into midnight tonight?
I don't have that on in front of me, Dave.
Okay. I was just going to make a point that, you know, and this was well before your time, but over a 5 or 6 year period, $150,000 or $156,000 was either transferred to other uses or back to free cash, rather than used to maintain the parks. So I'm very sensitive to how much money we end up with, and I don't look to use it foolishly in the last week of June, but I also am really concerned that projects and or facilities will let go into disrepair with that kind of money going back to the general fund or being transferred to other uses. And I make that comment every year.
I feel like we get nothing done, and then I feel like we get a lot done at the same time. Does anybody else have anything else on that, or is my thinking right that this is just something that needs more thought, especially with the events of this week, so that we can ensure that never happens again when we create the policy, and getting some pricing on what it would cost us to maintain our own porta potties, and obviously have that discussion with Rob to even see if it's even something we should be thinking about.
Maybe it was to get an understanding of why the dumpster is necessary from looking at the dumpster specifically. Why is a dumpster necessary? We do have a carry in, carry out policy. The only difference I can see between that and like Lunenburg Youth Soccer, which is at the schools and it's carry in, carry out, or there's a small trash can at the front at the two fields. There's not really I think baseball does more like concession sort of scenario. So conceivably there's more trash from
Let me ask
concessions or whatnot.
Let me go back and ask. Let me ask, you know, why they the
you know.
dumpster, why they need the storage, the separate storage. Clearly it's for storage, but you know, some places you just carry your own equipment in. But let's see what they say. I mean, I think that
It'd be interesting to see what's in those storage containers. There's probably fertilizer spreaders, lawn mowers, you name it. I would put money on it.
I know he asked for during the parks cleanup. He did reach out a couple of times, and there's been pushback in previous years with baseball and Little League doing work on those fields and so forth. You know, so he was cognizant of that. I didn't get the sense that they were fertilizing and so forth. But obviously, if we've seen that sort of stuff in the dumpsters and whatnot, and either someone's just using it to dump their trash there, or it was done at the fields. So I would be in favor of getting rid of the dumpster altogether if there really isn't a big use for it, or it's not necessary. I think we should look at getting rid of it.
do we want to send an official communication to Little League asking them for the list of actions of maintenance they are doing on the fields so that we understand before we make a policy?
so you want to.
Well, I think our policy needs to be that we don't want them doing any maintenance of the fields without prior authorized consent from the DPW.
Okay, so the.
I mean, so say they fertilize the fields and then a week later, Rob's guys go out and fertilize the field. I mean, we're
Right.
we're
Can ask.
taking up their time when they could be doing something else that would be more productive. It's not good for the environment. It's I don't know, burn the grass. Like who knows? I mean, there's all kinds of things that could happen. So I don't think anything should be happening in those fields without authorization and knowledge of the DPW and maybe even the commission, because the parks are under our care and custody.
And
Can I
if you read that letter, in there, it states there was a comment about the fee for T-ball. And that gives you a little bit of insight as to how they structure their fees to their participants. The T-ball kids were only charged the town fee. So obviously their fee structure is town fee plus a dollar amount for operations of Little League and or all, maybe not all, but many of the things they're doing that in our feelings right now, the town should be doing, and they should not be without permission. I know some of the materials are being donated, but there's still an issue with, like you were just saying, you fertilize a field with nobody's, and don't tell anybody you did it. And then as of tomorrow, we have a landscape specialist on board who I haven't seen the entire contract, but may be required to fertilize. They fertilize on top of that, and you have a brown field. So,
Were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add in terms of, outside organizations doing maintenance on town property. Obviously, that's an issue, and we want to be aware of what's going on and given an opportunity to weigh in and say yes or no, or yes, we'd love the donation of your work on the property. There's a process, I believe, for that. But I also, at the same token, I don't want to be too far reaching in making them bitter and say, well, we can't go out and rake the fields to prep for that game because you said we have to talk to the DPW director every time we want to do some maintenance. So just be aware that, a lot is done, on their end outside of the bigger things we want to, be aware of. So I don't want to discourage them certainly from everyday things that allows a game to happen that night, like lining the fields or, or
Edging
replacing the pitcher's mound or, something like that.
Yeah.
We just want to be careful there.
So if we establish some sort of policy or so, I think we can, what I guess it goes back to what Anna was saying, like establish what are they doing on a, on a weekly or bi-weekly, basis that's needed to maintain the fields that they're capable of doing. That's not adding walls and, drainage and things of that nature, I guess. So the edging of the fields and lining of the fields, repairing the mound, repairing the batter's box, things like that, and we can allow that to continue and then just figure out anything else that we need,
So maybe just starting by asking them, can you give us a list of the items that you're doing? It might help us, like Rob say, sort it out, things that might need more oversight or not, or things that we need more coordination.
So when we write that policy, we just remember to write in there that, miscellaneous cosmetic preparation for a game is allowed. Just throwing that out there so one of us remembers it when we're writing the policy.
So I'll go ahead and I will get in touch with Dave Chow, Steve Chow.
Steve.
I'll actually send him an email in a couple of minutes. We are hitting our 2.5 hour mark, and I do want to respect that time limit. I do think that we should have that time limit, probably a forever policy. I don't know about anybody else, but I don't function well after 2.5 hours in a seat. So my question to you is, we're going to go with the 14th of July, and we're going to do the last Wednesday of the month as well.
My suggestion is yes, because I feel like we have a lot of going on, and I think, you know, if something comes up that, especially is regarding recreation, that we can help or assess or needs an update.
That's fine. So on the agenda for next week, for 2 weeks from
2
now, I just
weeks.
want to make sure I have the right stuff. We'll put the invasive plants on there, the open space update on there. We'll circle back to the Little League. We will talk some more about the prioritization of park projects, yes?
Yeah, I already started typing. I'll share with everybody.
The programming discussion, I think that's gonna be ongoing. And then the Marshall Park piece. Okay, and then Dave, you're working on, you're gonna do the dog policy for the end of July.
Yes,
Okay,
Yeah,
so
for the-
remind me of that. Okay,
that last Wednesday in July.
all right. That all sounds good to me. I'm gonna hopefully, I'll get some answers from Steve Chow, and then we will get some information from these dumpster companies. I mean dumpster, the porta potty companies. I do want to just make sure that if anybody's here who wants to make a public comment before we log off for the evening, that they have the opportunity to. So if there's anybody that has something they're looking to say, now would be the time. And I don't see any hands, although, Rob, I see you twice. That's so weird. When I scroll through my screen, you're there twice. Very, very weird.
Just because you're just all happy to that I'm here tonight.
Yeah, exactly. So nobody has anything? Excellent. I have nothing else. There's no other board comments, I'm assuming. So the next meeting will be July 14th. I will attempt to send something out reminding everybody to send me any agenda items, but I think we're pretty solid in what we got. I don't think we need to keep adding on to it. I think we need to tackle what we've got. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Let's go quick roll call
It'll be
on
quicker, Suzanne.
Dave,
Hi.
Chris.
Aye.
Anna,
Hi.
Susanna.
Hi.
It's an aye for myself. Rob, sorry to disappoint you that we're, only had a 2.5-hour meeting. But
Oh,
thank you for joining us. And
I'm
thank you
very-
He was betting the over? Were you betting the over?
Yeah, I lost big on that one, Chris.
And thank you for everybody else that came tonight. I look forward to having you be part of our discussions moving forward.
Nice having guests.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. So even though they were quiet. So thank you, everybody. Have a great night. We will see you in a couple of weeks, and we're adjourned at 9:03.
Happy 4th.
Thank
Night.
you.
Night.